everyone at home. My name is Medge Nibourette. Today I'm going to do a science lesson for the P6 classes based on the water cycle, or what we call it the hydrological cycle. Okay, let's go back to our topic. Our topic will be water cycle. What is to cycle? I think that some of you don't take the bus to school, but you cycle to school. The word cycle means that it's a movement that goes round and round, like the wheel of your bicycle. Do you think that water cycle? It's a question that I give you some time to reflect upon. We also use the word hydrological cycle. The word hydro means water. This is why we use hydrological to replace the word water. So together we say the word hydrological cycle. Water cycle or hydrological cycle. So our lesson focus, do you think the earth has more or less water than thousands of years ago? Think about the earth existing 1,000 years ago. Do you think we have less or the same amount of water? So the water cycle will help us to understand that the water is the same, going through the same continuous cycle. So what is our lesson focus? We'll be looking at what is the water cycle, meaning the definition of water cycle. What is the relationship between water cycle and the free state of matter, and why is the hydrological cycle important? So this is what we're going to see in our lesson today. Before we move to the cycle itself, let's go back in connection with the free state of matter. Previously, in your lesson topic, you have covered about the free state of matter. What are the free state of matter? So we have the solid, the liquid, and the gas, or what we say, the gases. For the solid, it can hold its shape and it has a fixed volume. That means if you put something, like let's say you have a bottle top, you put it in a glass, the volume remains the same, as well as the shape. This is why we say that it holds the shape. At home, I want you to think of examples of solid. Example, table is a solid, paper is a solid, blackboard is a solid. So you can think of more examples of solid, but remember that it holds shape, it has a fixed shape and a fixed volume. Liquid. What can we say about the liquid? Liquid, it takes the shape of the container. So if you go into, let's say you have a bottle of cola, we're talking about the lemonade, you pour it in a glass, it takes the shape of the glass. So we say that the liquid takes the shape of container, it has a free surface, and it has a fixed volume. Who can give me examples of liquid? Think about liquid. Everything that we can pour, they are liquid. Example, we have water, lemonade, tea. These are examples of liquid. The last one, we're talking about gases. Gases is special because it takes the shape of a container. For example, if you fill air in a balloon, it's taking the shape of the balloon. It takes the volume of the container that you put it in. Something special about gas is that it can be compressed compared to the solid and the liquid. So these are the free state of matter. Let's read them over again. Solid, liquid, and gas. I hope by now you still remember the free state of matter. That's good. Let's continue. We're moving forward to the water cycle. So I want you to think, it's a small brainstorming activity. So I want you to think about all the places, be it at home in your community or the outside world, where do we get water? Remember that water is a very special element that we use in our everyday life. So just think about the places where do we get water. So we have rivers. Okay, I hope that some of you have been to rivers or the small streams. Lakes. We don't have lakes here in Seychelles. Streams. A pond. We have waterfalls. This is an example of a waterfall. Ocean. When we're talking about ocean, we're talking about the seawater. And then we have rain. That we depend on so much. How does rain happen? Just think about, how do you think rain happens? So our next activity, you're going to watch a small video to see how rain is formed. How do we go about in getting the water?
Our topic for today is water cycle. The sun heats up the water from oceans, lakes and rivers, and water changes into water vapor by the process of evaporation. Plants also lose water in the form of water vapor from their leaves into the air by the process of transpiration. As the water vapor rises up into the air, it starts cooling down and forms tiny water droplets. These water droplets come together to form clouds. This process is called condensation. When the clouds start getting heavy and cannot hold the water droplets anymore, they fall back to the earth in the form of rain, hail or snow. This process is called precipitation. Some of the water that falls on the earth seeps into the ground. This water is available to us in the form of groundwater. The remaining water falls back into oceans, lakes, rivers and seas. This process is called collection. Then the sun starts heating up this water once again. This circulation of water is called water cycle.
You have just watched a small video about the process in the water cycle. In other words, how do we get rain? So let's look at the definition of water cycle. What is the water cycle itself? It's the continuous movement of water from the earth to the clouds and back again. So we have the word continuous movement of water from the earth. We're talking about the water bodies on the earth. It goes up to the clouds and back again. So let's read together the definition of water cycle. It is a continuous movement of water from the earth to the clouds and back again. The sun causes the water to evaporate into a gas, which eventually becomes part of the cloud. And when it cools, it becomes rain, which falls back to the ground. The hydrologic cycle or hydrological cycle is important because it is how water reaches plants, animals, and eventually us. Besides providing people, animals, and plants with water, it also moves things like nutrients and sediment in and out of the aquatic system. So when we're talking about the aquatic system, we're talking about like rivers, pond, marshes, etc. So what we're going to do now, going to explain to you in depth the process of the water cycle. Okay, we're going to start with the sun. You will see why do we say that the sun is very important in the process of water cycle. The sun hits. You have the heat from the sun, which heats up the water surfaces, the water bodies, what we call the water bodies. So when we're talking about the water bodies, we're talking about the sea. We can also call it the ocean. We're talking about rivers, streams, etc. So let's go back. The sun heats up the water bodies. Just imagine that the sun is heating up the water bodies. The temperature we're talking about there is very hot. Talking about warm and hot temperature. So what do you think happens when the sun heats up the water bodies? The water now will refer back to our states of matter. We're talking about the liquid state. The liquid, that means we're talking from the water bodies, it goes up because it is so hot that it goes up as vapor. So this process in the water cycle, we call it evaporation, like you just seen in the small video. Evaporation. Let's say the word evaporation. So evaporation is when a liquid is turned into a gas. That means the liquid is turned into a gas and it goes up as vapor. Something very interesting as well, it is not only the water bodies that gives out water. Remember, as living things, we also have plants that is considered as the main group of living things. So plant as well plays a good role in the process of the water cycle. Plant release gases into the air, water into the air as well. We sweat. And when we sweat, we are taking part in the water cycle. So just put yourself there because you are helping in the process of the water cycle. This process whereby you won't lose water in the atmosphere, we call it transpiration. Or in certain book, you will see the word evapotranspiration. So let's go back. The sun heats up the water body. So the first process is evaporation, and evapotranspiration is the process whereby the liquid is turned into the gas and it goes up in the atmosphere. I think so far, so good. As the vapor goes up, remember when it's going up, like you have seen in the video, they have separate. As they go up, it becomes cooler. At the bottom there, it is warmer, and as you go up, it becomes cooler. So all the particles, all the vapor, they join together. Of what we call, they condense. They cool down. They cool down to form clouds. The vapor cools down and it forms cloud. This process, we call it condensation. Condensation. So far we have evaporation, evapotranspiration, condensation. So now you see how do we get clouds. Clouds are formed by cool vapor. What will happen? What do you think will happen to the clouds? When they get so heavy, the particles that have been joined together, they become so heavy that after some times they fall back to the ground. Okay, how do you think they fall to the ground? How? They fall to the ground as rain. We get rain condensation. Okay, they fall as rain, as snow. Condensation, you don't get snow, but they can fall as rain, as snow, as sleet, like you have seen in the video. What is sleet? And hail. Okay, ice ball. So, from condensation, we can get rain, snow, sleet, as well as hail. This process, we call it precipitation. So if I ask you, give me a form of precipitation, rain would be a form of precipitation. Snow, sleet, hail. So we have the word precipitation. Okay? Precipitation is when the vapor has turned into a liquid. Back again, it falls to the ground. But before it falls to the ground, remember we have higher places like mountains, hills. So the water gets into the ground and then it will flow down. Some of them will soak into the ground. Some of them will continue the process. Where the water is flowing down, we call it the run-off. We call it the run-off. That means the water is going down and is going back into the water bodies where accumulation takes place. Okay? If you look on the board, here we have a cycle. That means the water has moved up and down. Good. So just review. The sun will hit up the water bodies. It will change the liquid into a vapor, or what we call a gas. Apart from the sun heating up, the plant too, they are in the process of evapotranspiration. That means they transpirate. Us human animals, we are sweating. It also helps in the process. It will go up as gases, condenses, cool down and form clouds. So by now you know how clouds are formed. This process is called condensation. Precipitation is the process that takes place afterwards. If we go back, examples, let's read. We have rain, snow, sleet, and hail. All the water will go down from the mountain, what we call runoff, and accumulates back into the sea or any water bodies. So this is what we call the process of water cycle. So we have evaporation, evapotranspiration, condensation, precipitation, runoff, and accumulation. Very good. Now, I'm going to test your understanding based on what we have done about the different processes. So what I want you is to label the steps in the water cycle. Use the words we have seen, not all of them you can see on the worksheet. Evaporation, the main one, evaporation evapotranspiration, condensation, precipitation. So I give you 2 minutes just to sort out the different processes. Okay? Let's see if you have all correct. Accumulation, whereby the water has gone down and it has accumulated in the sea or any water bodies. Evaporation, then it will evaporate back. So evaporation as well as transpiration. The good way for you to remember, when you see plant, we're talking about evapotranspiration. So the two of them, they will go up to form clouds, condensation. Condensation, as it cool, forming clouds, it will go back as precipitation, like you have seen rain, snow, and so on. And so we have the rain. Give yourself a big clap if you have everything correct. But one way for you to remember the different process, you can use your fingers as well. So whenever you are pointing up, your fingers are pointing up, definitely we're talking about evaporation or evapotranspiration. Arriving up, horizontal line, is condensation, meaning that they are forming clouds. Then it will go down, we're talking about precipitation. Very good. We're talking about precipitation. Slanted or diagonal, meaning that we're talking about runoff. The water is flowing down. And then go back into the water bodies and accumulates. Very good. Now, to continue, I have a diagram shown below. We have the different letters A through E, that represent the 5 different processes taking place in the chart. So what I want you, you're not going to write, but just sort out the letter that matches each process. So let's look at the letters. We have letter A, letter B, letter C, letter D, and letter E. Let's look at the process. The process we have, let's read: condensation, evaporation, the groundwater, precipitation, and then we have runoff. So I give you 2 minutes, just work it out quickly. Match the letters to the process. Okay, so condensation. So which letter that matches condensation is the letter A. Why? Because we have the clouds. The clouds will make us remember that condensation is taking place. Evaporation. Evaporation. Think back of the arrows. Evaporation. Which letter is showing evaporation? Is letter E. Letter E is going up, is showing evaporation. Very good. The groundwater. The groundwater. Remember, I told you before that some of the water, they soak into the ground. So we're talking about groundwater. So E is the groundwater from the mountain there. Good. Precipitation. Forms of rain, of snow, and so on. So if your arrow going down, it's precipitation. And lastly, we have runoff, where the water goes down. So the letter C is the runoff. Very good. Give yourself at home a big clap. I have some question for you. You can copy the question. You can copy the questions, that later you can do it at home. Name the 4 main processes in the water cycle. The 4 main one. During which process is water released from land organism? So when we're talking about land organism, we're talking about plant, we're talking about animals, species in the atmosphere. So which process is water released from them in the atmosphere? Why does water cycle occur? Apart from rain, give 2 examples of precipitation. We have seen about precipitation, so you give examples of precipitation. How are clouds formed? We have seen about clouds, their formation. How are they? And why is the water cycle important to us? So these are some of the questions that you can tackle at home. I hope by now you have a better understanding when we talk about the water cycle or the hydrological cycle. So just to summarize, okay, the process by which water changes from one phase to another is called the water cycle. So this can answer your question about why do we have water cycle? We have water cycle because water can change from one phase to another. Evaporation is when water, a liquid, turns into a vapor, which is a gas. Condensation is when water vapor turns back into a liquid water. Note that evaporation increases with heating. Remember, as it warms up, increases with heating, while condensation, it cools down. The sun causes water to evaporate in the atmosphere. Cooling of the atmosphere results in the formation of clouds, and rain occurs when the droplets become too heavy for the clouds. Rainwater then soaks into the ground and eventually end up back in the rivers and ocean. I hope we have... Okay. We have arrived at the end of our lesson. I hope you have really enjoyed it. And by now you can explain to your families, to your colleagues, how rain occurs. How do we get rain? Or in fact, what is the water cycle? Or another word we can use is what? Hydrological cycle. Give yourself a big clap. Stay safe.